We're going to talk about the overview of our last big assignment for the semester. You can find that under Assignments and Fiction 101. The good news is there isn't a whole lot of reading from the textbook anymore. Now it's all about what you can do, what you can write. We're going to spend the next 4 weeks on fiction, which, if you look it up, means it's make-believe. You made it up. It's fiction. Okay, there are 3 parts of this project. There is the process, the product, and the presentation. Each part has its own grade, and you must do each part before you can do the next. It doesn't make sense to go do a presentation if you don't have the product first. Now, it sounds like common sense, but watch somebody try to get up here and present and they didn't even write. So, you must do each step before you can do the next one. So, again, this is the overview. It might seem a little overwhelming, but that's because I'm telling you all the pieces right up front. But have the understanding that we will go over each of these pieces as we move through the next 4 weeks, okay? So don't be scared. I will walk you through this process. I'm just trying to give you an overview so you have an idea of where we're going and what the expectations will be. Okay, so I start off with a little introduction. You have spent many years hearing other people's stories. If you've seen a movie, that's someone's story. If you read a book, obviously that's someone's story. But somewhere, somebody put their heart and soul and cared about the plot and the characters. And you just kind of ate it up. You just consumed it. It'd be like that show Iron Chef, and these guys take the best in the world and they put all their skills and a lifetime of ability into one dish, and then you eat it and like it's gone in 3 minutes. It takes you an hour and a half to get through a movie that might have taken years. Maybe a year to make, but it could have taken years just to do the writing, because that is the core of that film. So, you guys have been consuming stories almost probably as far back as you can remember. So now it's time for you to give back to the world. You will write your own story, and it's going to come from you. So there will be a little piece of you in there. You just can't help that. Not until you become an accomplished, published author will you begin to be able to write stories that have no part of you. But in the meantime, every story you write will be a little piece of you on that page. So, you are, in that way, contributing to the world. You're going to write a work of original fiction. There will be opportunities to work on it in class, but most of it will be done at home. This project truly brings together all the elements of writing you've been exposed to during your school career. Spelling and grammar, it's important, but now it's important for different reasons. It's not to pass a spelling test like you did in 4th or 5th grade. Now you spell because you want people to understand your story. You want to communicate effectively. And so spelling and grammar matter because you want to be clear on what's going on in your story. You're free to write about any topic you choose. Although in the end, I will talk to each one of you and approve the subject. It should go through me first. Make sure your subject is appropriate for school. Okay? And I want to make sure it's worthy of your time. For example, I don't want drug stories. I don't want to see 10 pages of you describing what it's like to get high. You can do that, I guess, on your own time, but not for this class. Okay? Now, there are books out there about drugs and druggies, but those are exceptional books. Like, they're an exception to the rule. You guys are right now learning the basics, so you got to follow the rules. If you go and take a creative writing class in college at UC Riverside, the very first creative writing class, they have even more restrictions. They have like no guns, no this, no that. It's like, what's left? Man. Well, that really challenges you to know what story is, right? Anyway, so in this class, just make sure it's appropriate for school. Now, what are you going to write exactly? Well, you have some choices here. The first one is like part of a novel or novella, which is a short novel. That's not the Spanish soap opera. Novella is a short novel, maybe 150 to 300 pages, something around that. Okay, or you can write part of a novel. So what that means is in your mind, you've mapped out an entire story, all 12 plot points. They're mapped out in your brain, but you're only going to write 10 pages of it. So it's really just a small little piece of a much bigger story. Most students choose this route. You may never write the rest of it. You just kind of planned it of what it might look like. Some students actually do go on to, they continue working on it long after graduation. I have students that 2 years ago are still working on their stories they wrote in this class. Why? It's not about their grade anymore. It's their story. It matters to them. Okay? There's one girl going to RCC. She's actually trying to get published. And she has her story done, and she started it in this class. So you never know. Somebody sitting among you could be a published author. Could happen. Look what happened to J.K. Rowling. She was a waitress. A waitress. She had her story all in her head. Probably helped her escape the boredom of being a waitress all day. But she hammered out Harry Potter. And now she's one of the top 5 richest women in the UK. So you just look around you. You never know. The novel comes from inside.
So she wrote about a little kid that gets hit in the head.
So you can choose to write a part of a novel or a novella. We're going to continue this project, this final. If you stay with me the rest of the year, we're going to do it again at the end of second semester. And so in the end, you'll have at least 20 pages of something that could be much bigger. Okay, so that's one option. Another choice is to do a complete short story. This is different. It sounds like the easier one. Oh, short story. Doesn't sound like a lot of work. But to tell you the truth, the short story is more difficult. It's easier to think of a big, huge story and just give me 10 pages of it, rather than come up with the entire thing into 10 pages. Now, a short story usually is about one moment in time, like a car accident. That's the entire story. And so the first half leads up to that moment. And then the reader experiences the moment. And then you see the result, the fallout of that moment. And that is a short story. Okay? So it's actually, some ways, more difficult coming up with a complete package. Why? Because you have to be efficient as a writer. That in one page, you've already established character. And so you see what I mean? Short story is an option, but it's more difficult than how it sounds. Another choice, and I've had really no student each year, no student has taken on this one, although I leave it up there every year. And that's to do an interactive story. I think it's important to have as an option because media is becoming more user-centered every day, where the user is determining the story, where the audience is determining the outcome of that story. They are taking control of story. And we see that a lot in gaming especially. But not just in games, but they're actually doing professional training with interactive stories. They're doing it professional, even military leadership. They'll give them a DVD. You might go get a job at Target and you get a DVD that's interactive. It'll say, okay, here comes a customer, and then they're talking to you. Okay, what do you do? A, B, or C? And then if you pick the wrong one, there shows a little vignette that shows you why you were so wrong. This is what happens. Okay? Or and then they'll show you this is what you should have chose. And so they're doing that to train people. So interactive storytelling is becoming an art that you guys as modern society have to maybe practice and get your hands on. Okay, so what is an interactive story? basically you would write like 5 pages of setting things up. And then on page 5, you ask the reader to make a choice. If you want to go through the left door, go to page 6. If you want to go in the right door, go to page 7. If you want to do nothing and sit down, go to page 8. And you as the author can determine the consequences of those choices. I gave you a very superficial one, but you can get really deep with that. You can make the reader, you can force the reader to make moral choices. And even in the gaming world, they are starting to move in that direction, where the player must choose actual questions of morality. Do I let the girl get killed by the terrorists for the sake of 100, or do I take the risk? So we as users, as audience, are being asked to do these sort of things. The story I wrote for my senior paper at UC Riverside in the creative writing department, and my judges were a lot tougher than me. They're National Book Award winners, all published authors, and here I am giving them my piece of work. So I had to step it up with them. So I did an interactive story, and it had 30 different endings. And I actually changed my writing style according to the choices the reader made. So my story was about a pirate, and he was trying to retire. He has all his money already. He's done. He wants to go home. But he can't because everybody wants to stop him. Everybody he stole money from, they're trying to get him now. So you as a reader have to get him back home. And so depending on your actions, like if you wanted him to fight all the time, then my writing style changed. I made it very gritty and bloody and visceral and action-packed. If the writer or the reader instead kept opting not to fight and run away instead and do all these other emotional decisions, I made the writing more descriptive and I slowed down the pace. So my style changed according to the reader. Well, that was just my big project. So you guys can just do something like this. Have a choice, 3 consequences. Okay, so the requirements, it needs to be at least 10 pages, which sounds like a lot. Well, it is a lot if you're writing a historical investigation with MLA bibliographical citations, but not if you're writing a story. You're going to find 10 pages is like nothing. A lot of students keep going. They're like, man, I can't even get it into 10 pages. They write 10 pages and they haven't even started their story yet. Okay? That's it? So you'll find it's really not a big deal. The only time it's a big deal is if you don't know how to type. Then I guess it could take a while to start typing it out. But other than that, you should be all right. You can write more than that. I don't care. Just keep writing and writing. I'll guarantee you I'll read the first 10. So if you turn in 100, I'll read the first 10 and give you a grade. All right? But hey, keep writing. It's your story. Most of all, guys, I really want you to have fun with it. I really do. It's not supposed to be a project that's supposed to stress you out and freak you out. The only time you should get stressed is if you just keep procrastinating. Do not wait for the last minute, especially on creative writing type of things. You know, it's terrible to have to create and come up with stuff under pressure on a deadline. It's very difficult. And you're not giving your story a chance to grow up and to become a better story. That takes time. You're going to want to perfect your stories. Why? Because they're yours. They're coming from you. There's a piece of you in that story. You're going to want the time to perfect it. So you want to get that first draft done. So you have time to sit on it, to sleep about it, to think about it, to share it. So you can shape that story into the story you want to tell. You know what? You may not be ever happy with your story. Sylvester Stallone, he's a famous actor, director, multi-millionaire. He knows Hollywood. He knows all the movers and shakers, that's for sure. He's a popular guy. And in an interview with him, after his last film, he directed The Expendables, he said that, the question was, do you ever go to see your own movie? Like, did you ever go to the movies to see what people thought and, kind of pretend you're not there, like disguise yourself or something? And, he said that no matter what happens, he's never met one director in Hollywood. In all of his experience, he's never met one who's been happy with their film. Never. There's not one director who's ever happy with their movie. And so what that means doesn't mean their movie's bad. It's just that they're like perfectionists, you know. So even when it's gone to print and it's out there, they're like, man, I could have done this. I should have cut that out. I should have added this. And so you might feel that way as an artist, as a writer. And so you have to realize and accept the fact that your story is liquid, it's fluid, it's always changing. And so you got to give it time to grow up. So do not wait to the last minute. All right. Now, how do we get started? I have an article for you. You can read it on your own if you want. This talks about all the different plots in literature. This is just a place to start. If you take all the literature that's ever been written for the last 2,000 years, it really comes down to just 7 different types of stories. Well, that's just according to Jessamine West. Other people have come up with other lists. Ronald Tobias says, no. There's like 20. So he's got like 20 different plots. But then this guy, Georges Pulte, he said, no, wait. There are 36 different plots. The point is, it's finite. There is a certain number of plots that have already been done. So you're not trying to reinvent the wheel. What you have to do is take what's already been done and then make it your own. So if you don't know what to write, you can just pick a random one or pick one that you like, right? You could just say to somebody, hey, Blake, give me a number between 1 and 20. 13. Maturation. All right, so that's it. That's my story. I'm committed to it. I got to write a story about somebody who's trying to mature, coming of age. But anyway, do you see what I mean? So that's just a place to start. But ultimately, I tell students the same thing every year when they're stuck on not knowing what to write. I tell them, you know what? Write the story that you want to read. If you were to go into a bookstore and spend money on a book, what type of story would you want to read? And that's the one you should be writing. Who cares about what anybody thinks at this point? You're not, and don't think about, well, there's already been all these books published. You're not publishing anything. You're just writing a story. So don't worry about what's been published and what's out there. Maybe you think, maybe there's a part of you that thinks the vampire thing is so overplayed and I don't want to be like Twilight and I hate that. Everybody likes that stuff. But then there's this part of you that kind of likes the vampire thing. But you don't want to be, cliche, and you don't want to seem like you're sold out. You know what? Don't worry about it. If that little part of you there's a little vampire story in there, then write it. Who cares what anybody thinks? Man, Stephanie Meyer, she's not the first one to write about vampires. There's been hundreds, thousands of books about them, and yet she did her own version of it, and it was to great success. So don't worry about what's already out there. Write the story that's living inside each and every one of you. So that's just to give you some ideas. Now, as we go through the actual expectations of what you're going to turn in for class, I'm going to talk about these 3 steps. The process, the product, and the presentation. First is the process. This is to get you thinking about your stories. And so what you're going to do, you're going to turn in 5 blog posts. You're going to use the same blog that you have now. No use creating a new one and playing with all the colors, and don't worry about that. You're just going to do the same blog that you've been using. It's already on the list. Let's not worry about your blog. Let's just add to it. Okay? So there's going to be 5. The synopsis, characters, plot, multimedia, and then a link to your actual story. I'll show you Alex Trebek's. He's already got his done. Okay, so there he finished his lit response 4. And now his synopsis is just a basic overview of his story. And I'm going to give you the template that you can use to write one. So don't worry. I will teach you how to do every single one of these blog posts. But anyway, this is just the overview. Here is the synopsis, brief little overview, a map to the story, if you will. Then his next one is the list of characters and their descriptions. I will spend a whole period just talking about characters, so don't worry. When you get here, you'll know what to do. And then plot. He's got all 12 plot points and their descriptions. I will teach you about plot. I'll tell you about every step of the plot. The day I teach plot, I should have it on the Google Calendar. That day, don't miss that day. You want to be here on that day. Because when I teach you about plot, it's going to change your life. It will. Yeah, I know, it sounds silly. But every year, I'm always right. In fact, most of the students after that day, so mark that day on your calendar, because that's the day you will change forever. After that day, the first reaction, students are angry. They're mad at me because I changed how they see the world. And then it takes about 5 months later, they're very happy. They're so glad. And they feel so much smarter than all their friends. Okay, so you don't want to miss that day. The day that will change your life forever. Okay, and then after your life has changed, now you're ready to move on to the next blog. Okay, multimedia, very simple. I'm not looking for full-on film video production. Just very simple, 30-second clip, like a movie trailer to your book. Like if your book was a movie, what would the trailer look like? Or you could do slides. Well, you could just do slides if you want. See, look, 10 slides. All it did is it took the story and sort of put it into slide form. And you'll put it on your blog. Fairly simple. Then the last blog is simply the cover, your book cover, which you'll design. This is just a PowerPoint slide, and I just uploaded it as a photo. Pretty simple. And then the link to your story. Simple as that. That's the 5th blog. So that'll be all 5 blogs. Now, when I click on this link, this will take us to step 2, which is product. Your final product will be your 10-page story in Google Docs. So here is Alex Trebek's story. You can read it. This story was actually published in an anthology of short stories. But it was written a long time ago. Well, it's mine, but, we just say it's Alex Trebek. But yeah, I turned it in under my name.
But it was really published?
Yeah, it got published in a anthology of short stories. Okay, so.
Did you get money for it?
No. Because I'm just kind of starting out. Just to get published, hey, that's good enough, So anyway, you could read this story if you want, but the reason why I chose this to share with all of you, so you could see the type of detail that I'm looking for. If you look at the pacing, that's kind of what we're looking at. It's kind of slow pacing. Some of you go too fast, and then you're losing all the descriptions that you're supposed to be having. I'll talk about product later as we go. The last thing is presentation. So there's the product. Now, here's the presentation. Presentation will be on the last week of school, pretty much. Each one of you will get up and do a presentation. The dates are December 12th through the 15th. I'm going to be looking at 4 things, and these are based on the state standards. First, were you prepared? It's about 5 minutes. So you have to know what you're going to talk about. Now, what are you presenting exactly? You're basically trying to sell your story to us. You have to imagine this audience is a bunch of potential publishers, and you want them to publish your story. If they publish your story, you get $10,000 up front, and then you'll get any money that comes from sales. So, hey, that could pay for a lot of things. It's not a lot, but it can, it's a nice little help. So, your job in 5 minutes is to sell your story. Don't just tell us about your story. That's not selling. If I took a vacuum cleaner and told you about all the features, well, that's great. But it's not exactly selling it. You see what I mean? You got to sell the story. But you got to be persuasive. You got to be inspirational. And so that takes practice. You're going to have to know what you're doing. You got to care about your story, even if you don't care. Fake it for 5 minutes. Pretend it's the greatest story ever written. If you have the right attitude, that's half the battle. You come up here with the right attitude, it's the best story ever written, then your presentation's already on its way to a perfect score. Okay? Starts with your attitude. So come up here, present as the best thing ever. Have a visual aid. You can use some slides. You can use the slides we did in blog post number 4, the multimedia. You can use those. That's fine. You can come up with a whole new presentation just for your presentation in class. You could just have a poster if you want. If you think that's going to sell, that's up to you. You can go low tech, high tech. Doesn't matter. Just have to have some visual thing. Reading. You will read an excerpt from your story. It's exactly 1 minute, 60 seconds. I have the timer. Pick a part of your story that would be good to read. You don't have to do the first page. At the first page, you're just describing the green grass outside in your car parked in the student parking lot. Doesn't make for an exciting 1 minute, right? You want to pick that 1 minute where there's something happening. It'll make your presentation better. That 1 minute is included, it's part of the 5-minute package. So it's not 6 minutes, it's 5. So maybe 1 minute of reading, 4 minutes of talking. Does that make sense? That's a package deal. All right. You must read with engagement and feeling. If you read like a monotone robot, you will get a 0 because that's not selling. If you take your great, awesome story and just start going, the path which led up Jaguar Mountain cut through a field of tall, swaying grass and disappeared into the lush emerald veil of trees. The footprints of winter were barely... That's not selling anything. Nobody wants to buy your book. They're going to burn your book. Okay? You got to read it with passion, right? The path which led up Jaguar Mountain cut through a field of tall, swaying grass and disappeared into the lush emerald veil of trees. Okay? So you have to read your story, and you only have to do that for 1 minute. So you might need to practice it. You know, I'm all about that. I used to have to practice all my presentations. And they were for class. I had to give a persuasive speech. I said, I'm going to wear my suit. It wasn't required. I just think I'm going to present better if I'm wearing a suit. I feel different. And then I practiced in my suit. The night before the presentation, I went out. There was an empty lot. I went out to an empty lot, 10 o'clock at night, in my suit. And I'm yelling my presentation out in the field. And the police came. True story. Police came, asked for my ID, what I'm doing out there. Neighbor says some guy in a suit is yelling at somebody out in the field. Okay, so maybe it's the deal gone wrong or something. I don't know. Anyway, I had to convince the guy I was doing it for homework. But hey, I'm serious about presenting. And you got to practice until it's as part of you. 1 minute goes by fast, real fast. And you'll have it in front of you, right? So, and then the last thing is, of course, listening. So when people are giving their presentations, you're supposed to sit down, listen, be a good audience. I'm paying you to listen to all these people. So that's part of your grade as well. Now, there is an alternative assignment. It's not for everybody. That's why it's called alternative. If you don't have the skill to pull it off, well, then don't do it. Do what everyone else does. Get up here and do your thing. But if you can do this, if you can take your 10 pages and read them and record your voice, basically making an audio book out of your story, and you submit them to me, you email them to me, you don't have to get up here and present. Now, is it the same presentation you would give? No, it's totally different. Because in this one, you're not selling, you're just reading. Now, you can't, of course, don't be monotone robot, right? It doesn't make your story will probably lose points because it sounds boring. Because you made it sound boring. But if you do a good reading, hey, there you go. You're helping me because now I could wash the dishes while I'm listening to your story. I don't have to stop everything I'm doing to read it. I can get on with my life. I can clean the cat doo-doo while I'm listening to your story. And then I'm a hero around the house because I did everything around the house and everything's clean and I cooked dinner. I cleaned up dinner.
What does your wife do?
She just is happy because I just do everything. and I listened and I go, but what I was really doing, I wasn't cleaning. No, I was grading papers. And that's all because of you. So you give me your audio book, you help me get the house clean, and you benefit because you don't have to come up here, right? But if you don't have the skill, and if you're boring when you read, don't do it. It's not for you. Get up here and just do your thing instead, okay? Don't lose points because you don't know how to read. All right? So, and don't outsource it. Don't be calling somebody to read your story for you. Okay, I kind of know what you sound like. You know, if I get Michael Tang's story and it sounds like this professional English British woman, I don't know, something's up. Okay, so, you know what I mean. Anyway, so that's there are deadlines. Let me just talk about the due dates and I'll close this out. So, let's talk about the due dates. You can find this by going to the course website, click on calendar. But you guys are taking notes. You should write down the due dates. All right, they're going to come up quick. That's why I'm telling you now. First draft is due November 30th. Now a first draft is just that. It's your mind getting it out of your head onto the page. That's it. I'm not looking for any perfection. In fact, I'll tell you the truth. I'm not even going to see them. I'm not going to read 100. I have over 100 seniors. I'm not going to sit there and read all of your first drafts. The first drafts are for you to get started. So you get your first draft done. Then, on December 1st and 2nd, we're going to be in the computer lab. And you guys are going to read each other's stories. And you're going to give feedback. Because there's nothing better than seeing your story through someone else's eyes to see where the flaws are. You know, you might think you're very clear, but you give it to someone else, they're like, what? I totally don't get it. Or they think your story is a comedy, but you meant it to be serious. Well, oops, you might need to change some things, okay? I've had a few mishaps like that happen in my own writing. For example, I thought it would be cool to start sentences with the word and. I just thought it was so poetic. Like, and did this and went to the store. And well, I gave it to the committee or whatever, and they came back a week later, and I couldn't talk. I couldn't defend myself. That's part of the rules. And they said, I totally get this story. The main character's name is And. I was like, in my mind, I'm like, no. Okay, so anyway, you don't know what your story's like till you get other people reading it. Okay, so get your story reviewed. Now you fix it up. So the final draft is due December 4th. So that's the hard deadline right there. December 4th is like the big day that it's got to be totally as beautiful as you can make it. Now, because you're using Google Docs, you can keep tweaking it until I actually grade it. You know what I'm saying? That's the beauty of online submissions like that. If you printed it and give it to me, there's nothing you can do now. It's in Google Docs. So go fix it up until I actually sit down and grade your paper. You have that time. But December 4th is the hard deadline. Okay? Now, after you have it done, you're going to have plenty of time to work on your multimedia and your presentation. You'll have like a week or so. That's plenty. Hey, it's school time. That's a lot of time. So, your presentations are then from the 12th through the 15th. So that's an overview. I know I went through it fairly quickly. If you need to review it, I'll post it online so you can check it out.